Picture this. It's the late 1300s. You're on a dusty road to Canterbury with a colorful group of pilgrims. A knight, a miller, a prioress, a cook, and every single one of them has a story to tell.
Sounds like the perfect setup for a Netflix series.
Exactly. Think of it as the ultimate medieval road trip where everyone's spilling the tea, 14th century style.
So, what are we doing today?
We will discuss Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, a masterpiece of medieval storytelling. Ready to join?
Let's do it.
Fair warning, expect laughs, some juicy gossip, and a few shocking twists. Chaucer didn't hold back, and neither will we.
Welcome to NibblePop LitChat.
And to the Canterbury Tales.
Let's get started. Let's start with the setup. Why are all these people traveling together? And what's the deal with this storytelling contest?
Okay, so it's like a collection of stories. It's told by this group of 29 pilgrims along with the narrator himself. They are traveling from the Tabard Inn in Southwark, London to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket at Canterbury Cathedral.
Interesting.
I think what's really cool is it's not just the tales themselves, but who is telling them, right? We have a knight, we have a nun, we have a miller, a wife of Bath, like a real cross-section of 14th century English society.
So Chaucer isn't just giving us stories, he's giving us voices.
Right. And the journey starts with the general prologue where Chaucer introduces each pilgrim. He does it with incredible detail.
So think of it like a character lineup for like a reality show, but with rhyming couplets.
I love it. A medieval reality show.
Okay, let's meet some of these contestants who stand out to you.
Well, you can't talk about the Canterbury Tales without mentioning the knight. He is the epitome of chivalry, like a seasoned warrior who has fought in all these exotic battles. But Chaucer hints that maybe there's more to him than meets the eye.
What makes you say that?
Well, the knight is dressed very humbly for the pilgrimage. So some scholars think that maybe Chaucer is subtly hinting at the financial struggles of even noble knights. Warfare is not cheap.
Maybe all those crusades left him a little short on cash.
And there is this prioress, Madame Eglantine.
What is a prioress?
A prioress is basically like the second in command at a convent, just under the abbess. She is in charge of making sure everything runs smoothly and the nuns stick to their routines.
Got it. Now, how is Madame Eglantine?
She is elegant, refined, and very sensitive. She weeps if she sees a mouse caught in a trap. But she wears a fancy brooch that says, Amor Vincent Omnia.
What does that even mean?
Love conquers all.
A little too flashy for a nun, maybe. Is Chaucer implying something about her priorities?
Perhaps. It certainly makes you wonder if that love that she's referring to is purely spiritual, right? Chaucer was a master of irony, and he loved to use details like this to make us think twice about first impressions.
So under the pious facade, there might be a bit more to Madame Eglantine. I am starting to see why you call this a reality show. Okay, who else should we gossip about?
Well, we can't forget the wife of Bath. Bold, witty, playful, and she has been married 5 times. And she has some very strong opinions about marriage and men and a woman's place in the world. Let's just say she's not afraid to challenge the status quo.
5 times married. She sounds like she has some stories to tell.
Oh, you bet. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's just say she is a force of nature and a reminder that women in the Middle Ages were not always the meek, submissive figures that they are sometimes portrayed to be.
Okay, so we have got a potentially broke knight. We have got a possibly scandalous nun. And then a 5-time married woman who sounds like she could run a country. This pilgrimage is shaping up to be quite a trip.
Oh, and we've just started. We haven't even met the friar, who is more interested in making money than saving souls, or the summoner, whose face is so hideous it could curdle milk.
You are not kidding. I just flipped through one of the sources, and Chaucer's description of the summoner is both hilarious and horrifying. Boils, carbuncles, leaks. It sounds like he escaped from a monster movie.
Chaucer certainly had a way with words, but remember, he is using satire to expose the corruption and hypocrisy of the medieval church. So, the summoner, for all his outward ugliness, is a symbol of kind of this spiritual rot that Chaucer saw all around him.
So even the most outrageous characters serve a deeper purpose. It's like he's making us laugh while sneaking in some serious social commentary.
Yes, indeed. And that is one of the things that makes the Canterbury Tales so brilliant, right? It's entertaining, it's thought-provoking, and it's endlessly fascinating.
Okay, I am hooked. Let's start the stories. But first tell me, how many stories are there?
Chaucer originally planned that each of the 30 pilgrims,
Wait, 30? But you told me there are 29 pilgrims?
29 and the narrator himself.
Okay.
Now, Chaucer planned each of them would tell 2 stories on the way to Canterbury and 2 on the way back, totaling 120 stories. However, he left the work incomplete, so we only have the 24 finished or partially finished tales.
I got it. But what should we start with?
Well, since we were just talking about the knight, why don't we start with his tale?
Sounds good to me. What kind of story does a noble knight tell?
The Knight's Tale is a classic tale of chivalry and courtly love. It's about these 2 knights, Palamon and Arcite, who are both in love with the same woman, Emily.
Of course, it's always about a woman. So what happens? Do they fight over her?
They certainly do. They end up having this grand tournament to win Emily's hand in marriage. It's full of action and drama and even some philosophical reflections on fate and free will. But I think what's really interesting is how Chaucer uses the tale to kind of explore this darker side of chivalry.
What do you mean by a darker side? I thought chivalry was all about honor and noble deeds.
It is on the surface, but Chaucer shows us how chivalry can also be fueled by jealousy and rivalry and even violence. So these knights are supposedly fighting for love, but their actions cause a lot of pain and suffering along the way. It makes you question whether the ideals of chivalry are always worth the cost.
That's a really interesting point. So it's not just a simple love story. It's like a commentary on the complexities of chivalry itself.
Exactly. And that's what makes Chaucer so brilliant. He takes these familiar tropes and turns them on their head. He forces us to think more deeply about the stories that we tell ourselves.
Okay, I am ready for something completely different now. Let's hear about the wife of Bath's tale. I have a feeling this one is going to be wild.
Oh, you are absolutely right about that. The Wife of Bath's Tale is a real roller coaster. It starts with this knight who commits this terrible crime of assaulting a woman, and as a punishment, he is sent on this quest to discover what women want most in the world.
Okay, I am on the edge of my seat. What is the answer? What do women want?
Well, according to the Wife of Bath, what women desire most is sovereignty over their husbands and their own lives. It's a surprisingly feminist message for the 14th century.
I knew it. She is a woman ahead of her time. But how does the knight figure this out? Does he have to, talk to a bunch of women and get his heart broken a few times?
He does, actually. He encounters all sorts of women along his journey who give him different answers. But it's this old hag who finally reveals the truth. And in return for this knowledge, she demands that the knight marry her.
Oh no, he's going to have to marry a hag. That's a terrible fate.
It seems that way, doesn't it? But the tale takes another surprising turn. She challenges the knight's notions of beauty and worth, asking him if he'd rather have a beautiful but unfaithful wife or an ugly but loyal one.
This is getting deep.
Yeah,
What does he choose?
he wisely decides to let the hag choose for herself, and because he's finally learned to respect her agency, she transforms into a beautiful and faithful wife.
Wow, what a twist. So the wife of Bath's tale is really about challenging societal norms and embracing female empowerment.
Precisely, and it's one of the most enduring and thought-provoking tales in the entire collection. It makes us question our own assumptions about beauty, power, and what it truly means to have a happy marriage.
Okay, so we have had chivalry, we have had feminism. What other genres does Chaucer throw at us?
Well, if you're ready for a good laugh, we have to talk about the Miller's Tale.
Bring on the humor. From the sound of this Miller character, I bet his tale is a bit earthy.
Think of it as like a medieval sitcom with a very raunchy sense of humor.
Okay, I am intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, it involves a carpenter, his beautiful young wife, and this rather foolish scholar who is trying to woo her.
Classic setup.
The scholar convinces the carpenter that a second Noah's flood is coming and they all need to sleep in tubs tied to the ceiling to survive.
And he believes him.
Yes, while John's busy waiting for the flood, Nicholas makes his move. But then a parish clerk shows up outside trying to woo the wife. She plays a prank on him by sticking her rear out of the window for him to kiss.
No way. What does the clerk do?
He is furious, comes back with a hot poker and burns the scholar when he tries the same joke. In the chaos, the carpenter falls from the tub and everyone laughs at him for being so gullible.
What a wild story. Love, tricks and total humiliation.
Chaucer gives us this mix of high and low culture.
Okay, give me the next tale.
Alright, how about we talk about the Pardoner's Tale? It's a bit darker, but it's one of the most powerful and thought-provoking tales in the entire collection.
Okay, lay it on me. What's so special about the Pardoner's Tale?
Well, first of all, you have to remember who the pardoner is, right? He is a church official who sells indulgences and relics, which were basically ways for people to buy their way out of sin. He is a con man, plain and simple.
So not exactly a shining example of piety.
Not even close. And yet, the tale he tells is all about the dangers of greed and the inevitability of death. It is this chilling story about three friends who set out to kill death and end up finding death themselves.
Wow, that's some serious irony. A corrupt church official preaching against greed. Chaucer is playing with fire here.
He certainly is. And that's what makes the Pardoner's Tale so fascinating. It's a masterclass in hypocrisy, and it forces us to confront the gap between our ideals and our actions.
So even the most flawed characters can offer profound insights.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that makes the Canterbury Tales so enduring. It's a work that embraces complexity and contradiction and the kind of messy realities of human nature.
Okay, I am officially in awe of Chaucer. He's like a medieval Shakespeare. But we have only talked about a handful of tales. There are so many more to explore.
There are, and each one offers this unique glimpse into the minds and hearts of people from all walks of life. We have tales of romance, adventure, religious devotion, and even a fable about a rooster and a fox.
Rooster and a fox. That sounds intriguing.
It's the nun's priest's tale. It's about a rooster who is proud of his voice and lives in a farmyard with several hens. Not long after a sly fox sneaks into the yard, he flatters the rooster, praising his beautiful voice and convincing him to close his eyes, stretch his neck, and sing.
Oh no, he fell for it, didn't he?
Completely. As soon as the rooster stretches his neck, the fox grabs him and runs off.
Classic rooster mistake. What happens next?
Then the rooster gets smart and tricks the fox.
How?
He tells the fox to stop and brag to the others about his clever catch. The fox can't resist and opens his mouth to gloat, and just like that, the rooster escapes and flies up into a tree.
Serves the fox right.
Exactly. It's a perfect fable about pride and flattery. The rooster learns not to trust sweet words, and the fox learns, well, probably nothing.
Lesson of the day, don't let flattery make you foolish.
Or you might end up as someone else's dinner.
Alright, so we have gone through the setup of Canterbury Tales and some of its standout stories. But before we dive into the rest of the tales, how about we take a quick break?
Good idea. And for our listeners, don't go anywhere. There's plenty more drama, wit, and maybe some scandal waiting on this storytelling road trip.
Stay tuned. Okay, we are back.
Then let's talk about the merchant's tale. It's about January, an old knight who marries a young woman, May, to have an heir.
Classic disaster setup. Let me guess, trouble is coming?
Big time. May falls for Damien, January's squire. After January goes blind, May sneaks off with Damien in a garden.
And January doesn't notice?
Here's the twist. The gods Pluto and Proserpina step in. Pluto restores January's sight mid-affair, but May convinces him his vision is just adjusting. He buys it.
That's wild. So she gets away with it.
Completely. The tale is all about irony, deception, and how love blinds, literally and figuratively.
What a tangled mess. Classic Chaucer.
All right, next up is the Reeve's tale. It's a tale of revenge, trickery, and, well, things getting messy.
Wait, who is a Reeve?
Reeve is like a supervisor of an estate.
Okay, and what does he have to tell?
There's a dishonest miller named Simpkin who loves cheating people. One day, two students, John and Alan, decide to outsmart him after he steals grain from them.
Okay, they are not letting him get away with it.
Nope, they stay overnight at his house to keep an eye on him. But during the night, things escalate. Alan sneaks into bed with the miller's daughter, and John tricks the miller's wife into sleeping with him.
Yikes, that's some serious payback.
The next morning, the miller discovers what's happened. In the end, the students leave with their stolen grain and a bit of revenge.
So it's a tale of cheaters getting cheated.
Exactly. It shows how dishonesty can come back to bite you.
Chaucer really knew how to stir the pot, didn't he?
Absolutely. Ready for the next tale?
Let's hear it.
All right. This is the Friar's Tale.
Now, what is a friar?
A friar is a member of a religious order who preaches and serves communities. And the tale is about a corrupt summoner who gets a taste of his own medicine.
A summoner? Remind me, what's their job again?
They are officials who summon people to church courts, often extorting money in the process. The summoner is no different. He is greedy and uses his position to exploit others.
I am guessing karma catches up with him.
Absolutely. On one of his trips, the summoner meets a mysterious yeoman.
Yeoman?
A yeoman is a freeborn servant, often serving as a forester or minor official.
Now, what does this yeoman do?
He turns out to be the devil in disguise. They strike up a conversation about their work and realize they both prey on people for personal gain.
That's dark. So, what happens next?
The summoner accompanies the devil to a widow's house, planning to extort her. But when the widow curses the summoner, the devil decides to take her curse literally and drags the summoner to hell.
Wow, instant karma.
Exactly. The Friar's Tale is all about exposing corruption and showing how greed can lead to a person's downfall.
Chaucer's sly commentary on church corruption shines through here.
Exactly.
What's next?
Alright, let's move on to the tale of Sir Thopas. This one's a bit different.
Different? How?
Well, Chaucer, as the narrator himself, is the storyteller here, and he intentionally makes it overly silly and ridiculous. It's a parody of the popular chivalric romances of the time.
Okay, so what's the story?
It's about Sir Thopas, a knight who decides to go on a quest to find the elf queen to marry. Along the way, he faces a giant named Sir Oliphant, but instead of fighting, Thopas runs away to gather better armor.
Wait, so the knight just retreats?
Exactly, and the tale keeps dragging on with pointless details about his outfit, his horse, and his meals. It's absurdly long-winded and intentionally boring.
So what's the point?
The host interrupts Chaucer, that is the narrator, mid-tale and begs him to stop because it's so terrible. The whole thing is a satire, poking fun at the cliches and excessive style of chivalric romances.
So Chaucer is having a laugh at the genre's expense?
Exactly. It's his way of showing that not all storytelling needs to be grand or serious. It can be playful and self-aware too.
Got it. A deliberately bad story to make a clever point. Classic Chaucer.
On to the next tale.
Let's go.
Alright, next up is the Franklin's Tale.
Who is this Franklin?
He is a wealthy landowner, known for his hospitality and love of fine food and drink.
And what is his story about?
This one is about love, honor, and keeping your word.
Sounds noble already. What's the story?
It's about a knight named Regus and his wife, Dorigen. Even though they are married, they treat each other as equals.
That's pretty progressive for the 14th century.
It is, but things take a turn when Arviragus goes off to war. Dorigen, left behind and worried about his safety, makes an impulsive promise to a young squire, Aurelius.
Promise?
Aurelius is in love with her and says he'll only hold her to the promise if he can make the dangerous rocks near her home disappear. She agrees, thinking it is impossible.
And does he pull it off?
Surprisingly, yes. With the help of a magician, the rocks vanish. Dorigen is now torn. Should she keep her promise or stay loyal to her husband?
That's some serious moral conflict.
Definitely. But here is the twist. Arviragus, when he learns of the promise, tells Dorigen to honor her word. However, Aurelius, moved by their integrity, releases her from the promise.
So everyone acts honorably in the end?
Exactly. The tale is all about nobility, sacrifice, and doing the right thing, even when it is difficult.
A refreshing change from all the betrayals and tricks in the other tales.
Yes, it's one of the most uplifting stories in the Canterbury Tales. Ready for the next one?
Bring it on.
Now, let's go for the Man of Law's tale.
A lawyer?
Yes, but the story is about Constance, a virtuous Christian woman whose life is full of trials. She is married off to a Syrian sultan who converts to Christianity for her, but his mother orchestrates a massacre at their wedding feast.
That's dark. So what happens to Constance?
She survives and is set adrift at sea, eventually landing in Northumberland, where her faith and kindness lead to more dramatic twists, conversions, false accusations, and exile.
Sounds like she can't catch a break.
Not at all. But in the end, after years of suffering, she is reunited with her family, and her patience and faith are rewarded.
A story of resilience then?
Yes, it's a mix of tragedy and hope, highlighting themes of faith and endurance.
Chaucer really knew how to keep the drama going.
Always. Ready for the next tale?
Let's go.
Alright, let's talk about the Prioress's tale. This one is intense and heavily religious.
What's the story about?
It's about a young Christian boy living in a town dominated by Jews. He is devoted to the Virgin Mary and learns a hymn to honor her, singing it every day.
That sounds innocent enough. What is the twist?
Here is the tragic part. While walking through the Jewish quarter, the boy is murdered by Jews who are portrayed in a very villainous light in the tale.
That's dark.
It gets darker. The boy's body is thrown into a ditch, but through a miracle, he continues singing the hymn even after death. This leads to his body being found and the Jewish community being punished harshly.
Definitely heavy. So what's Chaucer's point here?
The tale reflects medieval Christian devotion, especially to the Virgin Mary, but it also showcases the deeply ingrained anti-Semitism of Chaucer's time. It's uncomfortable for modern readers, but offers insight into historical attitudes.
So it's as much about devotion as it is about prejudice.
Yes, it's a mix of piety and problematic bias, showing the complexities of medieval storytelling.
Got it. What's next on the list?
Let's jump into The Shipman's Tale. It's a clever and slightly scandalous story about money, deception, marital drama.
Sounds like trouble. Who is involved?
The story revolves around a wealthy merchant, his wife, and a monk who is supposedly the merchant's friend.
A love triangle?
Kind of. The wife complains to the monk that her husband is mean and won't give her money for new clothes. The monk, trying to win her favor, offers to help.
How does he manage that?
The monk borrows money from the merchant under the pretense of needing it for himself, but he secretly gives it to the wife. In return, she agrees to thank him privately.
Let me guess, things get messy?
Why, absolutely. Later, the merchant asks the monk for the money back, but the monk slyly says he already returned it through the wife.
Wait, so the wife keeps the money and the monk gets away with it?
Yes, the merchant confronts his wife and she smooth talks her way out of trouble, claiming she will make it up to him in other ways.
Wow, talk about manipulation.
That's the essence of this tale. Everyone is scheming and no one is completely innocent.
A tale of wit and deceit, classic Chaucer.
Yes, ready for the next one?
Always, let's keep going.
Alright, let's move on to the Manciple's tale.
Who is a manciple?
A manciple is someone who buys food and supplies for institutions like colleges or monasteries.
And what is this tale about?
This one is a fable about a talking bird, jealousy, and the consequences of loose words.
A talking bird? Sounds different already. What's the story?
It's about a white crow that lives with a man and his wife. The crow can speak and sings beautifully. One day, the crow sees the wife being unfaithful and tells the man.
Oh no, that crow's honesty must stir up trouble.
Big trouble. The man becomes furious, kills his wife in a jealous rage, and then turns his anger on the crow for delivering the bad news.
Wait, he punishes the messenger?
Yes, he pulls out the crow's feathers, turning it black, and curses it to never speak again. That's why, according to the tale, crows are black and can only caw.
So, what is the moral here?
The tale warns against jealousy, rash actions, and the dangers of speaking too freely. It's all about thinking before you act or, speak.
A sharp lesson wrapped in a fable. Chaucer is still keeping it clever.
Always. Ready for the next one?
Let's hear it.
All right. Let's talk about the physician's tale. It's a tragic story about virtue and the abuse of power.
Who is the main character?
It's about Virginia, a beautiful and virtuous young woman, and her father, Virginius, a noble knight.
I'm guessing trouble isn't far away.
You are right. A corrupt judge named Appius sees Virginia and becomes obsessed with her. He falsely claims she's a runaway servant to take her for himself.
That's awful. How does her father react?
Virginius chooses to kill Virginia to protect her honor rather than let her fall into Appius's hands.
That's tragic. And what happens to Appius?
Justice catches up to him. He's imprisoned, but he kills himself before facing trial.
So a tale about sacrifice and corruption.
Exactly. It's a moral story that warns about the dangers of unchecked power and cost of virtue.
Sad, but thought-provoking. What's next?
Let's take a break before moving further.
You will have some coffee?
Why not?
Be right back. Okay, we are right back.
Thanks for the coffee.
Move on to the next tale.
All right, let's go to the canon's Yeoman's Tale.
We know Yeoman, but who is the canon?
The canon is a clergy member.
And the tale is about?
This one is about deceit and the shady world of alchemy.
Alchemy. That's the stuff about turning metal into gold, right?
You're right. The yeoman, who serves a canon, reveals the fraudulent practices of alchemists who trick people into believing they can create gold.
So is the canon one of these con artists?
Oh, absolutely. The yeoman explains how his master uses clever tricks to fool gullible people into giving him money, promising them wealth in return.
And does anyone catch on to the scam?
Eventually, yes. The tale focuses on one man who realizes he has been duped after the canon's promises of gold turn out to be lies.
So it's all about exposing the fraud of alchemy.
Yes, the yeoman tells this tale as a kind of confession, admitting that he and the canon were part of these schemes. It's a warning to beware of charlatans and false promises.
Sounds like Chaucer was taking aim at greed and gullibility.
Exactly. It's a cautionary tale with a sharp critique of deception. Ready for the next one?
Let's hear it.
All right, let's talk about the second nun's tale. This one is a deeply religious story about faith, martyrdom, and devotion.
Martyrdom? Sounds serious. Who is the story about?
It's about Saint Cecilia, a devout Christian woman who dedicates her life to God. Despite being forced into marriage, she vows to remain pure and converts her husband, Valerian, to Christianity.
Wait, her husband agrees to that?
Yes, Valerian not only respects her vow, but also converts after Cecilia tells him he'll see an angel protecting her. When he asks for proof, an angel appears to bless their union.
That's pretty dramatic. So what happens next?
Cecilia and Valerian work to spread Christianity, but this angers the Roman authorities. Valerian and his brother, who also converts, are martyred, and eventually Cecilia is arrested.
Let me guess, she faces a terrible fate?
She does. The Romans try to execute her, but she survives multiple attempts, including being boiled alive. She finally dies after 3 days of prayer.
That's intense. What's the moral of the story?
It's all about unwavering faith and devotion to God, even in the face of death.
A truly inspiring tale for its time.
Absolutely. It's one of the most solemn and spiritual tales in the Canterbury Tales. Ready for the next one?
Let's keep going.
All right, now let's talk about the Clerk's Tale. This one is a story of patience, loyalty, and honestly, some serious testing of limits.
Testing limits? Sounds like someone's patience is about to be pushed.
Yes, indeed. The story is about Griselda, a poor but virtuous woman who marries a wealthy marquis named Walter. But Walter has an unusual idea of what love and loyalty mean.
Let me guess. He puts her to the test?
Oh, he does, and it's extreme. He pretends to kill their children to test her obedience and loyalty. Then he even fakes divorcing her to marry someone else just to see if she'll remain faithful.
What? That's cruel. How does she react?
Griselda endures it all with unwavering patience and humility. In the end, Walter reveals it was all a test, restores her children, and they live happily ever after, or so the tale says.
That's a lot to forgive. What's the takeaway here?
The tale is about the virtues of patience and loyalty, but it's often read as a critique of blind obedience and the abuse of power in relationships.
So it's more than just a straightforward moral lesson?
Definitely. Chaucer leaves room for interpretation, making it as thought-provoking as it is unsettling.
Another complex tale from Chaucer. What's next?
All right. Next is the tale of Melibea. This one is a long and serious tale about wisdom, forgiveness, and resolving conflict.
Sounds like a change of pace from all the drama and humor. What's it about?
It's about Melibea, a wealthy man whose house is attacked while he is away. His enemies wound his wife Prudence and daughter, which leaves him furious and bent on revenge.
Let me guess. Prudence steps in with some wisdom.
Exactly. She advises him to think carefully and not act out of anger. Through a series of long speeches, she quotes proverbs and classical wisdom, urging Melibea to choose forgiveness over vengeance.
So it's all about reason and self-control.
Yes, after much deliberation, Melibea follows her advice, forgives his enemies, and makes peace, showing the power of patience and wisdom.
But doesn't all that moralizing get a bit heavy?
It does, and some think Chaucer included this tale as a kind of parody of overly long moral stories. It's as much about the lesson as it is about poking fun at preaching.
So a tale with a lesson, but also some humor in its delivery.
Exactly. It's subtle, but it's there. Ready for more?
Always. Let's hear it.
Okay, there are just a few more and the incomplete ones.
Tell me, I am all ears.
The squire's tale is about King Kimbiscan, who receives magical gifts, a flying horse, a mirror that shows future dangers, a sword that heals and wounds, and a ring to talk to animals. His daughter, Canassie, talks to a falcon who laments betrayal in love, but the tale is unfinished.
Incomplete fantasy. And the cook's tale?
That's another unfinished one. That one is about a party-loving apprentice who is fired for neglecting his work. He moves in with a shady friend whose wife runs a questionable business.
2 unfinished tales so far.
One unfinished more, Monk's Tale, a series of tragic stories about the downfall of famous figures like Lucifer, Samson, and Julius Caesar. But the host cuts the monk off, saying the tales are too depressing.
I would probably agree with the host on that one. What about the Summoner's Tale?
Oh, it's hilarious. A greedy friar tries to extort money from a sick man. Frustrated, the man plays a trick and gives the friar a gift, a fart in his hand. The tale is pure satire, mocking the corruption of friars.
What a mix. Fantasy, unfinished story, tragedy, and fart jokes. Classic Chaucer.
Exactly, that's the Canterbury Tales for you. What a range.
So 23 total, which is the last one?
Alright, let's finish with the Parson's Tale. It's not a story, but more of a sermon, serious and deeply religious.
A sermon. So no plot or characters this time?
Nope. The parson uses his turn to deliver a long moral lesson on repentance, sin, and salvation. He explains the 7 deadly sins and how to avoid them, emphasizing the importance of confession and penance.
So it's less entertainment, more moral guidance?
Yes, the parson is portrayed as a genuinely pious and virtuous character, so his tale reflects his dedication to faith and his role as a spiritual guide.
I'm guessing Chaucer included it as a serious note to end the journey.
That's right. It serves as a reminder of the ultimate goal of the pilgrimage, spiritual reflection and growth, not just storytelling.
A solemn but fitting conclusion.
Absolutely. It's Chaucer's way of grounding the tales after all the humor, drama and chaos.
But what does it all mean? Why are the Canterbury Tales still relevant today, centuries after they were written?
One of the things that makes the Canterbury Tales so enduring is that it captures something essential about the human condition. It's a work about storytelling itself, about the power of language to connect us, to entertain us, to challenge us, and to make us think.
Exactly. The theme that Chaucer explores are universal human experiences. We are not just learning about medieval England, we are learning about ourselves.
And I think that's one of the greatest gifts that literature can give us, a deeper understanding of our own humanity.
And it's like we are eavesdropping on this lively dinner party with all the gossip and laughter and drama that comes with it.
And there are always new layers to uncover. Scholars have been debating the meaning and significance of the Canterbury Tales for centuries, and there is still no definitive interpretation. Take for instance the spring opening. You have such a beautiful opening of the spring, and then It's all about a religious journey. How incompatible that is.
It's a work that continues to challenge us, to surprise us, to make us think. And that's why it's considered one of the cornerstones of English literature.
It's a testament to Chaucer's genius that a work written over 600 years ago can still feel so fresh, so relevant, so alive.
So as we wrap up today's LitChat session, what are some key takeaways for our listener?
Well, first and foremost, Chaucer was a master storyteller who captured the spirit of his age with wit, humor, and a key eye for detail.
He was also a pioneer in using English as a literary language at a time when French and Latin were dominant.
And through his tales, he explored these timeless themes that still resonate today. Love, loss, ambition, faith, hypocrisy, and the complexities of human nature.
But perhaps most importantly, the Canterbury Tales is a celebration of storytelling itself, of the power of language to connect us, entertain us, and make us think.
So listener, if you have never read the Canterbury Tales, we highly encourage you to seek it out. It's a journey worth taking.
And if you have read it, we hope this session has given you some new insights and perspectives. There is always more to discover in Chaucer's world.
Thanks for joining us on this literary pilgrimage.
Until next time, happy reading.